Welcome to SDP Connect. My name is Kristianna Morales. I am the Director of Self-Determination Program here at Disability Voices United. We have interpretation today, so in Spanish and in Korean. So please go down to the globe at the bottom of your screen and select your language. Even if you speak English, you need to select English or you won't hear if something is translated. If you're on a cell phone, go to the bottom of your screen and there's three dots. Select those three dots and you'll see the options for the language come up. So welcome everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone. We have a few announcements and then we have a great presentation for you today. So I'm going to start with my first announcement, which is that Community Access Connect is on the third Tuesday of every month. It's at 4 o'clock. And coming up on February 20th, we have a great program we wanted to make sure everybody knew about. It is Dr. Gloria Soto, and she's going to be talking about bilingualism and using AAC devices, the myths and the reality of it. I'm going to show you the flyer, and it's also going to go down into our chat so you can see it. Here is the flyer for that. There you go. And we had a directive come out that I want to talk briefly about. This was another one beyond all the ones we talked about the last Connect. It came out on February 6th, and you might not have seen it because it did not come out on the SDP site. So on the Department of Developmental Services Self-Determination Program site, there's a link to the directives. This one didn't show up on there because this one went to the regional centers. However, I think it actually is really going to apply to a lot of the people in this room because it is about social rec. So it could impact your ability to get the social rec in your budget. So I want to quickly show you, the link is in the chat if you want to find it. So it's not at that normal location, it's at the regional center directive list. So here's the link to it in the chat. And there's some key pieces to this. It's really detailed. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there were some that I have heard people talking about issues with their regional centers that this might help you with, that you could take this to them. One of them was that regional centers must not restrict funding to those services that are specialized or directed towards the developmental disability. So what does that mean? That means if you want to do a social rec, a camp, a class, that kind of thing, it doesn't have to be directed towards your disability. And I've heard a lot of people tell me their regional center is requiring their social rec activity to be directly linked to their disability. This is for social recreation. This is to get you out in the community and enjoying life. So it does not need to be linked to that. The next one that was in here was that the services do not need to meet both recreational and socialization needs. I've also had people telling me that the regional center was denying services for social rec because it wasn't meeting both recreation and socialization. So this says, and remember, when we talk about directives, if it's should, it means you could, it's not mandatory. If it says shall or must, the regional center has to do these things. So these are all musts. So these are important. So if you are having a problem with your regional center around social rec, you can bring this directive to them. The other one I've heard a lot about is denying one-to-one services, like a piano lesson or something in your home. They said they cannot exclude those from your social rec options. And the last one was really talking about they can't require that you pay for some of it, that there's a co-payment or some sort of shared arrangement of payment for it. They're not allowed to do that. And I think there might have been one more. Yes, there was one more. This one is interesting. I don't want to go too into the woods, but basically what it's saying is they have a thing called usual and customary rate. So that means if there is a rate that this, let's say it's an art program or a camp, is charging to the general public, that's the rate the regional center needs to pay. So that it's an important directive around those social recs. So if you're having problems when you're negotiating your budget, this is a great one for you to go and check out. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to introduce Judy Mark, the president of Disability Voices United, and she has an announcement for you as well.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I know that we've said in the past that we were going to be introducing legislation to fix the self-determination program and all the barriers and problems that you all see in it. Well, we're getting very close. And in fact, DVU is hosting an event with our author, who is Senator Caroline Menjivar from the San Fernando Valley. We love her. And the event's going to be on Monday, February 26th at 4:30 p.m. And I'm going to put the registration link in the chat, but please know that you are going to get lots and lots of emails if you're on DVU's mailing list. If you are not on DVU's mailing list, then you should go get on our mailing list. So here is the registration link for that event, but know that it will come to you in other ways. Thank you. That's all. And we'll have all the details of what's in that bill at that event.
So excited about the event too. So I'm really excited about that. So what we're going to do for our primary presentation today is based on a grant that we had from DDS for CIE, which is Competitive Integrated Employment. And so we have a program that we're going to show you. It's a 3-part program. But before we start, DDS has asked that we do a pre and a post test. It's not a test, it's a survey. It's 6 quick questions. So I'm going to ask that we're going to put the link here in the chat for you. And I'm asking you a huge favor if you can go to this link and you can do the pre-test, 6 quick questions, and then we can get started. And at the end, we're going to ask you about the same questions, and hopefully you'll have learned something along the way, and we can show with our grant that we were able to teach people things today. So I'm going to give you just a moment to do that. Is everybody able to see them? Were you able to get to the questions? See, I got a yes in there. Thank you, Huey, for letting me know. I'm going to give you just a minute to do them. Thank you so much for doing this for us. Okay, was everybody able to do it? Shall we get started? Do you have any thumbs up there or? I got a thumbs up from Mark. Thank you. Okay. And I saw done. Thanks, Huey. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start talking about employment. So what works for us is a 3-part series about employment. And I want to make sure it's clear because with self-determination program, sometimes it can get a little confusing when we're talking about employment. We're not talking about hiring employees because we do that in self-determination. This program is about the participant's employment and the participant going out and working. So welcome to What Works for Us. This is the first of a 3-part series. The presenters today are going to be me, Kristianna Morales. I'm the director here of self-determination at Disability Voices United. Tina Ewing-Wilson, who is Disability Voices United outreach specialist. And Freddy Gonzaga, who is an SDP participant and podcaster. So when we got this grant, we decided to go to the experts. When we wanted to find out what employment looked like, what the challenges were and what the benefits of employment. So we went to the experts. We did 20 case studies to talk to people who are in self-determination program to tell us their stories about employment. And these trainings are based on all of these stories. We had partnership with Guidelight Group and ICC who helped us with these case studies and coming up with the curriculum. And so I really hope that their stories are going to help you learn about employment and the self-determination program. We're going to focus on three areas today: why employment is important, the power of self-determination program to get employment, and kind of the difference between the traditional system, the traditional regional center system, and the self-determination program, and kind of what more options you have in the self-determination program. And then we're going to do kind of the self-determination program in action, and we're going to have some people who are in self-determination talking about their employment experiences. I wanted to start with a statistic. Um, this came from 2021, so it's a little bit old, but I want you to know that employment for people with disabilities is very low. And so they were talking about having a 38,724,294 people population in California, with 11% of those people being people with disabilities, and yet only 5% of them were working. And that's a very low percentage. And so this is why we really understand how important employment is for our community. So why is employment important, and why are high expectations important? And of course, the first thing everybody thinks about is, well, it's nice to make money, right? So employment makes money, but employment offers so many other things to people. It gives them a feeling of self-efficacy, a belief that they have their own ability to overcome challenges and accomplish goals. It gives them an improved quality of life. It gives people the opportunities to develop skills and to increase their confidence and come up and realize that they can do things they didn't know they were even capable of doing. Employment encourages independence and it fosters inclusion. So people with disabilities are in their communities, and that's what the goal of all of self-determination program is to be part of your community and find your circles of support. It helps keep people motivated, and the ability to overcome obstacles when they come. And once you've done it once and you've done it twice, you've done it three times, it gets easier every single time. And it really breaks those stereotypes. And for me, the high expectations, the most important piece is making sure that people aren't saying, you can't do these things. We don't expect you to be able to do these things, because they're wrong. Everybody can do these things. And so having high expectations makes a huge difference. So now I want to talk a little bit about what types of employment there are. And this is it. I think we're in a really exciting time for employment right now because things are changing. So how we define employment today is very different from how my parents define employment or my grandparents defined employment, right? And so for my grandparents, it was you would get a job, you would work there for 30 years, you would get a gold watch and a pension, and you would retire. And that's what employment looked like to them. It was 40 hours a week. It was staying at the same place for a long time. We really don't see employment the same today at all. And so you can consider employment is not just that 40 hours a week, behind a job, 9 to 5. There's so many new types out there. You can work part-time, you can work full-time, you can have an internship, apprenticeships, volunteer, seasonal and temporary. And then you get into some of the newer ones, freelance and gig economy. The younger generations are very big on these freelance jobs, self-employment, remote and telecommuting, consulting, contract work, micro enterprises. And as we were coming up with this list, I thought to myself, I bet there are tons that we have missed. So if anybody thinks of some and wants to put them in the chat, put them in the chat, because I think that the what employment looks like nowadays is so different. And so we want to think about new ways, new improved ways that you can be employed.
I think one that we didn't list is like a lot of people do hosting on like social media and stuff. They host groups or run groups, and I think we left that off the list. That's kind of an important one.
Oh my gosh, that is a great one. And podcasters and YouTube people. We talked about micro enterprise, but didn't specifically talk about, like Etsy and those types of things. So there's so many great, interesting ways for employment nowadays. Um, so when we talk about the traditional system, um, they have employment opportunities only for adults. They do not talk about employment with school age. Um, So when they're thinking about employment for adults, they're very what we call in the box thinking. They have kind of entry level positions, limited choices, not a lot of growth. And these are sometimes referred to as group employment, sheltered workshops. They have very limited choice. They're not personalized to the person at all. And one of the things that we hear quite often is some of these typical vendored employment services require that somebody is, and I put this in quote, job ready before they start searching for a job. And I find this humorous because I think anybody in this room who had their very first entry level job, we weren't job ready. You learn by working. You learn by going out and doing these jobs. So by saying that you have to be job ready, they're putting a barrier up that shouldn't exist. That so I think it's important that we kind of say, well, we know that this is the traditional way of thinking, maybe our grandparents or our parents' way of thinking, but there's a new way out there, and there's a new way we can think about employment. So I'm willing to bet that a lot of the people in this room already know what self-determination program is, but just in case there's somebody here who doesn't know what it is, we wanted to make sure that we did a quick introduction to what self-determination program is before we continue on. So Tina, do you want to explain
I
what
would be glad to. Self-determination is a program offered through the regional center which returns power to the consumer and their family by giving them more choices and more responsibility for their own care. It creates a budget for them by figuring out how much money is being spent on them in the traditional services, um, and bases a budget on or bases a budget on what they project might be spent on them if they're not in traditional services. If they the budget that based on like the projected what would be spent on them if they were utilizing traditional services and they're not. Then this program promotes thinking outside the box by removing the requirement to utilize vendor services and allowing the individual to create a life for themselves that meets the unique needs and personality of the individual. It helps to normalize the lives of consumers and their families by allowing them to utilize the people and businesses available to them in their own communities. Even allows them to create their own team of supports and places the consumer in the driver's seat where they belong. It also enriches the community in which the consumer lives. Those of us in self-determination program are creating jobs for people in our neighborhoods and promoting small businesses, creating our own micro enterprises that further enrich our neighborhoods. It is a lot of work to be in self-determination, but the process helps us learn and grow. It returns to us the right to make mistakes. Mistakes are how we learn. At the same time, it gives us the resources to create a safety net for ourselves. We do not have to do it alone, but we can do hard things.
Thank you, Tina. That was such a great explanation. So, um, when we think about the traditional system, of the regional centers, we want everybody to know if you are a regional center client, you have two options of how you receive your services. You can have the traditional system and you can have the self-determination program. So we are here to talk about the self-determination program piece, and we're going to boil it down to just the very, very basics, since this isn't a training on self-determination, but specifically around employment. The really big picture of self-determination is you start with a person-centered plan, you'll have an individual budget, and you'll have a spending plan. So we're going to look at each one of these pieces and how it relates to employment. I'm specifically going to share about my son. I asked him if he wanted to come and speak, and he said, "No, I don't like speaking in front of people, but Mom, you are more than welcome to share my story." So I am here sharing his story. Um, his person-centered plan starts with understanding that a person-centered plan is not an assessment. We are not looking at what people cannot do. A person-centered plan is looking at what a person wants to do, wants to accomplish their hopes and dreams, and how we can support them to get to those dreams. We have to understand that behavior is communication and that we are always going to assume competence. And so we want to make sure that employment is discussed at every person-centered plan, at every age. It's really important to think about the fact that how many times do you meet somebody who has a kid who is in first or second grade, and you look at them and you say, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" We start talking about employment at a very young age. And so it should be in that person-centered plan. We should be thinking about that. We want to make sure that they are respecting everybody's culture and diversity. And we want to remind people that a person-centered plan has to be very complete, because you can't spend money in the self-determination program unless there is a goal for the item you want to spend money. And we really figure out what those goals are in your person-centered plan. And those goals go into your IPP, your individualized plan. And that's where you can start spending that money. So a person-centered plan is very important. And sometimes people forget to discuss employment. And like I said, specifically with school age. So remember, in the traditional system, they consider anything with employment or those kind of pre-work skills the responsibility of the school district. So in a lot of ways, an IPP will often not even discuss it because they think that the generic resource, the school district, is responsible for it. However, a person-centered plan is a whole person plan. It could have things in this plan that that the regional center are not going to pay for, but we still want to think about them. So when you're thinking about your person-centered plan and you have a school-aged person that you are working with, you want to think about, what are those pre-work skills that you want to start working on? Being on time, following directions, social skills. Start thinking about entry-level work. That's that summer job, that partnering with the school district. So when you start getting to high school, some of the school districts have something called a workability program. Not every school district has it, but if they don't, the Department of Rehabilitation has student services. So student services offer a little bit more hours than the workability programs. But I'll tell you, in my son's case, he did both of these programs. Neither one of them permitted him to bring a job coach with him. And that caused a lot of problems because he needed those supports. And so this is where we really can see the self-determination. My son wasn't in self-determination at the time, so he wasn't able to bring his coach with him. But so sometimes those traditional services fall short of the things that we need to support us. For adult goals, we can start thinking about higher education and college, vocational training, volunteering, doing job discovery. A lot of people don't know what they want to do yet. And so maybe your first goal is, I want to start doing some discovery and figuring out what I want to do. You can do apprenticeships. You can start thinking about, do I want to start my own business? Do I want to do a paid internship program? Um, Adults still need to use the Department of Rehabilitation as the generic resource, but there are so many things that self-determination can add on to what the Department of Rehabilitation offers. The one thing with the Department of Rehabilitation is they tend to say you can do one of two paths. You can either do education or you can do employment. So most of us worked and went to school at the same time. So it's really hard to say, like, well, why do we have to choose? And so if you decide, well, the Department of Rehabilitation is going to help me with my schooling, then self-determination program can cover your employment piece. So it's something to think about. So let's look at my son's person-centered plan. This was his second year person-centered plan, and he was talking about what he did in his first year. So what he was doing around employment was he decided that he wanted to create his own brand. Now, he laughs at me all the time because I'm old school when he says, I want to create a brand. I didn't exactly know what that meant. So we found somebody who knew exactly what that meant and could help him. And we hired them to help him. And what he does is he takes his artwork and he creates it he makes it into something that is marketable. And they're helping him create a website. They go out to fairs where they have tables and he sells. This person also included, how do I learn to take credit cards? How do I learn to greet people when they come up to me? There were lots of pieces in this that he needed support in. Even though he knew where he wanted to go, we were able to provide a lot of different supports for him to work towards getting there. As he was working on this brand, he was also working with customized employment, and he realized that part of his brand was going to include being a podcaster. And we thought, well, I don't know anything about podcasting. How are we going to figure this out? Well, he was able to find somebody to help him learn to do a podcast. He also, we talked about um, in our household, we kind of talked about employment in two ways. A lot of people have a career that they're working towards, a dream that they want to work towards. But a lot of us have to work at a job in the meantime, right? So that's your entry level. You're trying new things, right? And so he did some entry level jobs. He learned quickly that he did not like the workability and the DOR jobs of um, he worked at a pet store and he worked at a pharmacy, and they had him line the shelves up so they were all straight and swept for a bit. And while he liked the idea of working and earning a paycheck, he realized pretty quickly, this is not what I want to do for my life. But there was nothing else beyond that in those programs. That was the only thing they were offering him. So this is really part of why we ended up in self-determination program. Um, so with Easter Seals, he was able to find an internship program working at Legacy, which is his favorite comic book store. And the trick with doing this kind of internship program is that Easter Seals will help you figure out what it is, what skill you have, and what this business needs. And so here was this great opportunity where this comic book store, they did a lot of card games, and they had boxes and boxes of these cards that needed to be sorted and nobody to do it. So my son was able to go and work there because he loved these cards. He knew how to sort them, all about them, and he organized them. And so this is what his paid internship program was. So he got an opportunity to try something a little bit different outside of his norm. So after you have your person-centered plan, Tina, do you want to talk about your person-centered plan at all a bit now, or do you want to wait till later? Oh, you're muted.
Well, What do you want me to share about it? Like,
Um, I think that when we were talking about it, you were saying when the first time you had your person-centered plan and you were talking about employment, um, uh, it was kind of the first time somebody had asked you about it.
oh, well, the yeah, when I first started doing self-determination, it was first for lots of things. Nobody ever, like, everybody just assumed that because of my seizures, I would never be able to work. And so, like, the first time they asked me about employment or what I wanted, it just in general, was in my first person-centered plan. You know, like, like, I couldn't answer them because I'd never really thought about what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, it took me time to learn that it's okay to think about that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and I do not think that you are alone. I think that that is a really common thing that, um, and that's part of that talking about keeping the expectations high is like, um, thinking about that and it's great that you had the opportunity to say, "Oh, now I'm going to think about this. What would I like to do?"
Yeah, well, it also kind of upset me because when I was growing up, it was pretty much just always assumed that I would never be able to do something like that. And so, like, I didn't get the same guidance other people my age got. They didn't let me go to regular school. I had to go to independent study, first of all. So, like, I didn't even have any friends. And then, like, all the stuff they were doing, I had no idea. Didn't get any guidance. And I feel like they robbed me of a future.
Yeah, it really explains why it's so important to be talking about this even at a young age, right? That
Well, also, people have a tendency to become what's expected of them.
yeah,
So if you expect me to be useless, that's probably what I'll be,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. So the next phase after you have your person-centered plan is the individual budget. So the individual budget is based on the services of what would have been spent on you in the traditional system. This gets a little bit confusing because if you've done your person-centered plan, you kind of know where you're going, what you want to do. You might already know that these traditional system programs are not going to meet your needs. So it seems odd that we're asking for something that you like, well, I know this adult day program is not what I want, but in the budget, because it's you're going to this amount of money is going to be based on what would have been in that system. We got to ask for that. Okay, if I stayed here, this would be the only thing they could offer me. So I'm going to ask for that adult day program, knowing I'm going to use it differently when I get into the self-determination program. So let's talk about what are some of the employment services that you could be asking for in the traditional system during that budget negotiation piece. Now remember, this is adults because they do not put employment services into school age. Now, they consider school age all the way up to 22, whether if you either graduate with a degree or like a high school diploma earlier, then you would be available to have employment services or when you age out at 22. So once you're at that, so either you have your diploma or you've aged out, then you can start asking the traditional system for some of these um, employment services and to be added to your budget. And that way, you'll have money to use it in the self determination program. Now, remember, and I think I'm a broken record, I say this at every single Connect, which is 21 regional centers, 21 different ways of doing things. I think we should make some sort of game out of me saying this. Um, so not all of these will be available at every regional center, but these are some to think about. So think about asking for an adult day program or a job coach, a supported employment, a tailored day services, group employment, work activity programs, customized employment. So like for instance, at our regional center, customized employment was not an option. They didn't have it at my son's regional center, but they had something called creative arts program, which is an unusual one. There is a service code for it, but I don't think that a lot of the regional centers have it. It just happened to be at our regional center. They did have it. So he had money as creative arts program. So let's look at what his budget looked like. But first, we have to talk about we still have that thing with generic resources. So, just as a reminder, a generic resource is any sort of federally funded organization that must provide services to the public. So, think of a generic resource like a school district or a department of rehabilitation, in home support services, those kinds of things. They have to be used first before they can put money into your budget for the regional center. So the big generic resource around employment is the Department of Rehabilitation. When we talked about as they were younger, it was the school district. Um, Age is going to be an issue, as we already talked about, of getting employment services, and it's one of those things is my pet peeve because so many people around 15, 16 start thinking about getting their first job, and they're saying, "You can't even think about it in the traditional system. We can't even think about getting those supports until you are out of high school." Um, so they have very limited types of services. So, as we said, my son's budget had a creative arts program in it. He actually had started this creative arts program, and this is part of how he ended up in self-determination program. It and I'm not criticizing the program itself. It's a great program. It was not a great program for my son. So my son is a night owl and he is an artist, and this program was set hours, 30 hours a week. It was from 9 in the morning until I think it was 3 o'clock. It was online because it was during COVID. They had to have their cameras on the whole time. It was very rigid. He couldn't work on his own artwork. It had to be specific things. And he was miserable. It was just not working for him. And that was when we really started understanding that we didn't think that the traditional system was going to work for him. He needed more flexibility. However, we were able to have the creative arts program in his budget to help pay for the things that he's doing now. We asked for transportation access booklet. Again, he is an adult. They were able to put in some transportation for him. Not every regional center will give you this. Again, this was something our regional center, when we asked for it, he does have in Los Angeles. We have something called Access. He'd already applied for it. It didn't work for him because it was late all the time, and so it didn't work for him. But they were able to put in a little bit of transportation, and so these were really the things that built his budget. Now we get to what I call the fun stuff. So when we get to the spending plan, I get all excited because this is where we, as Tina put it, we get to start thinking outside of the box. Now, all of a sudden, all those barriers, all those things of saying, this is how we look at employment in this very narrow view. You only have this limited amount of opportunities. You may or may not get the supports you need. All of a sudden, you get into self-determination program, and what can we do to support you to get you where you want to go? What's your dream? How can we do this? So do remember to be in the spending plan. We talked about this a little bit. You have to have a goal for whatever is in it. So let's say in your person-centered plan, you'd said, I'm really interested in uh, becoming an artist, and then you get to your spending plan and you're like going, I want to go and join a football league. They're going to say, something's wrong here. So we do need to relate it to a goal in your plan. We have to make sure the generic resources are used first still for it to be in the spending plan. But now the door is kind of open. So what can you do in the self-determination program that you couldn't do in employment in the traditional system? Well, like Tina said, she didn't know what she wanted to do yet. So you can have a job discovery process. You can have somebody like a customized employment who's going to come out and do discovery with you and figure out and maybe try a few different things. I mean, I can tell you, I know very few working adults who decided exactly what they wanted to do, and that's all they've done their whole life. Most all of us have done this odd road if we did this and we did that, and then we figured out this is what we like doing. So there is not a direct line between um, a young person and their final employment. So we're going to get support at your work. And here is the big difference between a traditional system job coach and a self-determination program job coach. A traditional system job coach often has no idea about your work at all. So let's say you decided that you are a great artist and you are going to be working at this Disney Studios, and you have some technical things that you need to know about. And the person helping you, who's supposed to be your support, doesn't understand any of that. How much support can they give you? So when you hire your support, you can hire somebody who specifically understands your needs, not only your individualized needs, but the needs of what's going on at your work. So a very specific person to support you, and you get to pick who that person is. You get to decide. You can have mentorships and apprenticeships. You can have communication partners. This is such an important piece, and one that is so often overlooked in being able to provide communication partners. You can hire a business consultant or manager. So let's say you want to do freelance things, but you are not good at managing your schedule or answering the phone or being reminded where you need to be at certain times. You can have somebody who's going to do that for you, who's going to do that. You could, let's say you decide you want to sell things, but you have no idea how to get out there to make money off of this, how to be a marketing person. You can hire a marketing consultant, a booking agent. We talked about customized employment already. Let's say you want to sell things and you need a website, but you don't know how to design a website. You could hire a web designer to help you with this.
I have a micro enterprising specialist who helps me figure out the laws and how to, what what I need in order to sell my stuff. And that will help me when I'm ready to make the Etsy and get it up and going. So that's the fun thing about self-determination is you get to go and you get to interview people and hire people. So not only are you going to have a job, but you're going to give someone else a job too.
Exactly. I love that. And exactly. And Tina's experience is exactly what can happen in self-determination is you have your dream, and self-determination figures out what supports do you need to get to that dream? What do we need to help you get there?
Yeah, I'm like if you don't think you can, like for many years I was pretty much convinced there's no way I could work because there's too many things I can't do. So now I think differently than I used to. My thought now is, okay, what is it that I need? What supports do I need in order to make this happen? Because I want a job. And so we sat down and figured out, okay, I need someone to take notes for me in meetings because I can't do that myself. I'll get too stressed out. So I have staff member that take meeting notes for me. And we figured out, okay, I don't drive. So in order to get where I need to go, I have to have transportation covered in my in my plan. So I have a mileage budget and they pay my staff for mileage. And so because the harder it is to hire you, the less likely you'll get the job. So you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and your plan can help you do that. And it really is life changing.
Oh my gosh, those are such great examples, Tina, of how it's different than that traditional, here's the job you can do, and that's it. So this is my son's spending plan. And what you'll see is we kind of talked about some of the things that he did, right? That he decided that one, he was going to have Easter seals. He was going to have customized employment help him. And you'll see this down here under here, right here, Easter seals. He also had Novel. That was the organization that helps him design his website and helping him come up with his products. The other piece that we have here is he was able to hire somebody to help him with his podcast. And the exciting thing is you're going to meet him in a few minutes. He also really, really key, as Tina talked about, was in order to be employed and in order to be able to do the discovery and those things, he needed to have transportation. He needed to be able to get to these things, and he needed to get there on time, which was also really key. And so he has transportation in his spending plan. So now comes the fun part. We're going to talk about the success stories. So you're going to hear a little bit more about Tina's story, and I'm going to introduce you to Freddie, and we're going to talk about Freddie's story about kind of what we call self-determination in action, right? So first of all, the most important thing is, who is this that you're holding in this photo?
That's my Rosie. Rosie is my service dog. She's a seizure alert dog. And my world kind of revolves around her.
And everybody
Our
has to
team.
see the cuteness of Rosie wearing a tutu
She
today
has a pink tutu.
for Valentine's Day. So I hope that cheered up everybody's day because it just made me so happy.
She's a good little dog.
We sidetracked a little, but I can't pass up that cute little face. So do you want to talk a little bit about before you were in Regional Center?
Yeah, when I was growing up, we didn't even know there was such a thing as regional center. Nobody told my mom there was help. So I didn't even find out about regional center till I was like 30 years in my 30s. But so when I was in school, I had so many seizures in my high school year that they did not allow me to continue at my education with everyone else. I had to go to an independent study program where I was the only student that was there all day because most people just came once a week. But my mom knew that she had the right for me to be in school, so she made them keep me. So because she was a teacher and she had to work, so she knew there wasn't anyone to watch me, and I needed 24-hour care. So they had to accommodate me, and so they put me in independent study and allowed me to gain work experience there by grading papers and things. And I did well at that. So then they told me about a summer program. And in the summer program, they help you get a job. There's only like certain locations where there's a job available, and they help you do that. And I didn't survive the summer job. Because we had a mishap where I ended up having a seizure that didn't stop. And then because that happened, they did not allow me in the program again the following year, which I didn't think was fair. Because I mean, it wasn't something I did intentionally. I mean, one of the children jumped on me, and their knee hit me in the back, and it caused a seizure that just didn't stop. And then they wouldn't even let me come back. So like the kids just, didn't know where I went, and that upset me. So like I made them let me come back and at least say goodbye. But then the next job I tried was I just wanted to be a volunteer. So I volunteered at what they called the multi-handicap preschool from the county that was on the same school grounds where my mother worked. So I volunteered there, and the teacher liked the way that I interacted with the children, and he encouraged me to actually go apply for a job, which I did. And I got the job, and it was great. I loved it. But then the following school year, that teacher left the school to work at a different school. And the new teacher that they put me with, we didn't like hit it off very well. Our personalities were very different. And they placed me in a different classroom with older children that were more difficult to work with. And I just had too much stress, so I had too many seizures. And instead of trying to help me, they just let me go. And their excuse was that I didn't survive my probationary period, but I was well over that. So we didn't understand. But I didn't know how to fight it. I didn't know how to say, hey, you can't fire me because I had too many seizures. But yeah, that was back then when I didn't know how to be an advocate, so I didn't. And then after I got into the after I got into the regional center program, then they had me. I lived in a boarding care, and I attended different day programs. I started out in the Goodwill sheltered workshop where we like hung chips on a string and on a plastic strip, and we put screws in bags and things like that. We were paid like sub-minimal wages to do a job that like was boring. And they also and I finally decided just Goodwill just wasn't working out for me, so I went into a day program where they offered art classes and things like that. But they also had a sheltered workshop program available certain days of the week, so I still had a little bit of, I guess work experience from that, but like it kind of seemed pointless because you don't get paid anything to do that, and you work hard and you don't feel like you're going anywhere. So once I found out about the self-determination program, then and got to actually think about what I wanted to do, I still didn't want to get a job, but I wanted to volunteer because there's less stress in a volunteer position. Because if you can't do it, you don't have to get fired. You can just, bow out. So I tried it, and actually I got a volunteer position with my church and with people that really supported me and that I get along well with. And after and my the self-determination program helped me with transportation so I can get there, and helped me get the clothes that I needed to start with, so that I had the clothing that I needed to wear, because they have like dress codes and stuff. And the church helped me with some of it, but not all of it. And and I got a lot of experience doing that. Like I learned how to interact with people. It gave me more social interaction exposure because I don't really do well. I don't feel comfortable in a lot of social situations because I don't make eye contact very well, and because I'm like really hypersensitive to stuff and don't always read people accurately. But my time working at the temple has given me enough experience to feel like, if I can do it there with the right supports, maybe with the right supports, I can do it somewhere else. And so now I work for DVU because I ask the right questions and because they help me figure out the right supports that I need, and I can do this, and I'm actually enjoying working. And I volunteer too because I'm still working at the temple, but I'm also gonna do the ambassador program with DVU, and I'm doing a micro enterprise, and my plan helps me probably the most with my micro enterprise because they got me all of the tools that I needed, I have every crochet hook known to man. So no matter what pattern I do, I have a crochet hook for it. They helped me get my initial setup with some yarn so I could make a few things to sell because it's my business isn't going to support itself until it's, until I have something to sell. So they helped me do that, and they help me with, by I get staff so that I get the help that I need so that I can do it. And they also helped me get the computer that I'm using right now, so that I can do my job because a lot of what I do is online. And they also got me a printer so
I
that
love your
you can
story.
print stuff out.
Oh my gosh, I love your story so much, and I want you to know you were getting a ton of love in the chat. There
Am
was
I? I
yes,
had to turn it off because it caused me too much stress. I couldn't focus on two things at once.
I
So.
want you to know that there were a lot of people just saying, "Wow, you were so brave," and that you've had you just didn't give up. You just and that's
Never, never, never give up, and always ask for what you want because if you're afraid someone will say no, if you don't ask, that's already no anyway.
I love
So
that. So
Thank you.
our next person that I want to introduce is Freddy Gonzaga. Freddy, are you there? Can we get you unmuted? Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Hi, Freddy.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm home. I'm home.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
So,
Excited to be here. Excited to be here.
oh, we are so excited to have you. We wanted to share your story because you also have a really great employment story to tell. Um, and what I want to say is that when we did your case study, one of the things that I really loved was that you had some great support at home. Your mom was like, when she was talking about it, she's like, she was on the idea of employment from a very like, we need to be doing this. This is important. And so she was on it early, huh?
Yes, yes. I've been in the regional center since like 2004 or five. So yeah, but we found out about self-determination, I believe, like in 2020. And then ever since I've been with it, and it's been a great beneficial for me because it's giving me that independent feeling.
So, when you were first in the traditional system, I think that they said the only services you had was respite and personal assistant. Do you remember getting any services in the traditional system at the time?
At the time, mainly a personal assistant for a couple years, but then that's about it that I remember
Mhm.
with regional center before the yeah, before doing this. So
So nothing around employment, really.
not about employment because I was like teenager at that time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So then you got into the self-determination program, and I have this up in the corner here. There is this amazing podcast by Freddie. So now tell me, do you do all sports or are you specifically in?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I do one for basketball and one for baseball.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Freddie has this amazing podcast. So, but you had some other goals in your person-centered plan, didn't you? What were kind of your goals as you were starting to think about what you wanted to do in self-determination?
For determination, I mean, of course, employment, that's one of them. Be independent. Like right now, one of my goals is to learn how to cook, and right lately, I've been learning how to cook on my own. So yeah, so and then, I mean, finishing school, that's one of them too, and just independency, really. Yeah.
So what are you cooking? Anything good?
Uh, well, my favorite dish to cook is fettuccine. I mean, I think some
Ooh.
people, yeah.
Oh, I love fettuccine. Are you going to bring me some? You need to bring me some.
Okay, I'll bring you some one day. Yes.
Um, so, but there was something that you had a dream, I think, in there. I remember them talking about of maybe I think you wanted to work at a radio station or visit a radio station.
Yeah, that was my dream, but lately I've been discovering what's really my passion lately. And this past summer, I went to a summer camp, and yeah, and it made a big impact on my life that I was like, whoa, this is actually what I enjoy doing. So maybe, I mean, radio station sounds cool. I mean, it'll be a good a way to learn about, to grow my podcast. But realistically, my goal is to be like a PE teacher right now, and like I'm majoring in kinesiology, so I'm doing like a lot of PE type of stuff. So yeah.
Oh my God. So, well, one, I love that it evolved, right? You had this thing that you first thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And then, over time, you're like, oh, wait a second. So, how did you end up with the job, the summer job?
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was through Easter sales. It was kind of interesting. It was like through connections, because Debbie's like the director of the program. It was through Debbie, and she told me about it. Hey, I know you like hiking and you like nature. There's this cool camp, and I was like, oh, okay. At first, I was like, I don't know if I want to do it, but then I was like, okay, you know what? I'll check it out. So at first, I was like, I don't know if this is my passion. But then like the first 2 weeks, I was like, okay, it's not a bad start, and then ever since I interacted with the kids, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm discovering that maybe this is really a good fit for me. This is what I actually enjoy doing, exercising with kids and playing sports with them and doing physical education stuff. And yeah, so I mean, kind of kind of switched my mind a little. I'm not gonna lie. So
That's and so were you already in school? Did you change your major or were you already studying that?
yeah, that's a great question actually, because after the job, I was like, yeah, I actually want to change major because I was doing journalism at the time, but then I was like, I'm not really feeling it anymore. I think I want to go what I really really know that's a good fit for me and what I'm really enjoy doing, which is working with kids and exercising and playing sports and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what, let me do kinesiology because kinesiology is like a great major for physical education. So yeah, I just recently switched it. I think last year of September, I changed my major to kinesiology. So
Oh, that's awesome. So, I also know that in self-determination program, because you have your podcast, so you are one of those people who's not doing the I only do work or I only do school. You're doing both right now.
yeah.
And so, um, with your podcast, I understand you were able to get some equipment through
Oh
self-determination
yes,
program.
through self determination. Like I got the membership and a microphone, and I think I got a I forget what those called, like those recorders, kind of like a tape recorder type of thing. Yeah, I got it through self determination. So
Well, awesome. And so I think that um you at that point must have said something with customized employment that you would be willing to help somebody because you were an expert podcaster at this point do a podcast. And this is actually how I met Freddie, because my son, who we talked about earlier, was saying, well, I'm interested in doing podcasting, but I don't know anything about it. And so through Easter Seals, they said, well, wait a second, I think we have somebody here who could help. And so he is a paid mentor for my son, and he's teaching him how to do podcasting. So how is
oh
that
yeah,
going, Freddie?
oh yeah. That's how I met. Yeah, I met you realistically, but it's been going good. Children's a very fun client, and he's very passionate about dragons. So it's been an interesting topic to learn, and I've been trying to, learn about it, and it's been really fun and interesting. And he's very he's very organized, Chilton, and I could tell he's really into, the dragons. So I'm learning from him. So it's really cool.
It's funny because you have very different subject matter for your podcasts, right? But you've got the learning how to do a podcast and the how to hold on, I'm going to come up with the word monetize it, right? So how do you make
Hmm.
money at this, right? And these are all really important things to learn.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah. Um, so is there anything else that you want to share with everybody kind of about self-determination program and employment and your experience?
Is it cool if I show my mom's actually next to me right now? She wants
Of
to like pick out the
course.
meeting. Is it
Oh,
cool?
my,
Yeah.
let her say hi.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully you can see her.
Hi,
Hi,
welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourselves to everyone?
sure. My name is Sulma. I'm Freddy's mom, and I've been navigating, as you know, this new journey with self-determination, and it's been like the best thing I ever done for Freddy, due to his needs and the way that it's so accustomed to all his goals. Has made him more independent, and the flexibility of how to get the services has been like the best thing. um Now that he's an adult, it's a whole different journey, and I think it's important for the parents to kind of like understand that it's a scary situation for someone that's starting, but at the end, the first year is a little bit of a little bit of work, but then once you get going, it makes it easier, and you see that the independence that it gives, the clients of the regional center, which is Freddie, like for him, his needs, and like he mentioned, he was into broadcasting, and he's still doing it, but at
As a
the end,
hobby.
yeah, as a hobby, and then now as an employment, he's looking forward to continue with something else that he enjoys, and he's always enjoyed sports and has done a lot of volunteering and coaching the special needs population. So I couldn't be prouder than him that, he tries to continue, keep busy, and going to school and focusing and helping others.
I'm so glad. Did you hear us talking about you earlier? We were
No,
talking. Oh, we started by, I was talking about how Freddie was so lucky to have this great mom, because when we did the case study, it started by talking about your support up front of how important it was to you. You had very high expectations and that he was going to become independent and you were going to find those supports for him. and that you've done this along the way, and how great that is.
Yeah, definitely. And like, like he mentioned with when he started with the broadcasting, it all focuses on what, you put in the IPP and this plans, and you are able to get certain equipment. And I know that one of the questions was like, if you can get a laptop. It just depends on how you write it and how it becomes supportive for the client. So for him, because he was going to school and majoring in broadcasting, we were able to get the computer. We were able to get a lot of the equipment that he needed to start the podcast. So that's how it's all based, and and it is a little bit of a journey to start, but once you see it, you'll see the benefits, that it's so easier than the traditional form of doing it. So I know he's happy because like now he wants to learn how to cook, and those are things that I have now in his plan that I want to make sure that's he can go to a class and learn from someone else besides the basic stuff that he's been learning. So that's a difference between the traditional system and having the self-determination.
I love that, I think both of the stories have really shown that self-determination is you can come up with whatever you can dream up, right? It's like, we've got rules on what we can spend the money, but we can still dream big. And I love these stories of, the sky's the limit here.
Correct. Yeah.
And you can change your mind. I love that, Freddie evolved along the way and said, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And I think that that's another great thing about self-determination is, you can take a turn in a different direction and go, oh, this is it now. This is, and so, Freddie, I am so excited to see, one, I'm going to see you graduate. I can't wait to see you graduate, and all the great things that you're going to accomplish. So, and thank you so much for popping in. It was a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Just a little bit of Freddie's background. Yeah. So he's been in self-determination for like 4 years now, and
Since 2020.
yeah. So it's been a big change that we're having.
Yeah. I know at the beginning it was scary, like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I told my advice to people is just be patient if you join the program. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, what I'm going to do is we do need to do the post survey, and then we're going to open up to questions. Freddie and Tina, if you don't mind hanging out for just a minute, and then we can open the floor. How we do questions is you can either raise your hand or you can put questions in the chat. If you've put questions along the way, they've been gathered, and we will pull from the chat questions and answer those. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask my team if they can put the link in the chat for the post test. So the post training test, it's actually the same 6 questions you answered at the beginning with 1 extra one. So I appreciate it so much if people will take a moment to go and do this. I'm going to take a little sip of coffee and a breather, and then we will get to the Q&A, which it's to be really fun to hear all the questions and questions that everybody has. So I'll give you just a second. Is everybody able to see that? Did it come up? And also, while we're waiting, can I ask my team to give me the link for the chat questions? I didn't see it pop up on my thing. Okay. Did we have enough time to do it? Okay. Let's get started with questions. So, I'm going to look at the chat here. Oh, this is a great one. So the first question I have from the chat is, what is the role of the Department of Rehabilitation with self-determination program? That is such a great question. So the Department of Rehabilitation, as we said, is the primary generic resource. So it's the place you have to go to first before they will offer the services at Regional Center. as I said, they have kind of two paths you can take. You can either do like education or vocational training or employment. So if you're like Freddie or my son, where they want to do a little bit of both, you're going to only get the services of one, and then you can go get the rest of the services over at the regional center. So I hope that kind of answered the question. And I will open it up to Carolyn. Would you like to unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So my son has gone through DOR in the past 2 times. I was told we could not hire a job coach this year. We're in year 3 until we go through DOR again. The last time we met, it was they only had a very limited offering working in an office. They sent us to build, and that's where we went, and it took a negative turn. My son was not enthusiastic, and the person talking to us initially seemed cool, but she's like, well, I don't know if this is going to work with his attitude like that, and it devolved into this negative thing. And I'm like, all right, so what do we need to do now? He wants to do 2 things. He wants to like start his own business selling baked goods, and he also wants to work in an airport, but it can't just be any airport. It has to be LAX. So since we've had that experience, I'm not sure what to do.
So, and I'll tell you that I hear from almost everybody. We had the same issue with Department of Rehabilitation giving you a denial is difficult. And some the regional centers are like, well, we won't give you the services until you get a denial from DOR. So I know this is a problem. But again, your individual program plan should spell out what his interests are. And if DOR is not able to offer anything in that, then they're not the appropriate service. So you need to use the generic resource as long as it's appropriate, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
So if you go back to them and say, hey, this is, what they're having is not appropriate. It isn't in line. It may involve, here's an email with DOR and saying, this is all that they are offering. This isn't going to work. I won't say it's an easy battle, but it's out there. Are you in self-determination program?
Yes, year 3.
Okay. So I
don't want to say too much in case certain ears are on the channel, so I am limited to what I can share.
Right. But that shouldn't prevent you from still being able to. So if DOR isn't able to provide the support to the things that you're interested in, then you can, in your spending plan, you can go ahead and start doing those other things because they're not able to. There is. So let's say you're interested in maybe let's say customized employment, looking for that job at the LA airport, then there isn't a generic resource for that, right? So then you can do it that way. So kind of go pick things that there isn't a generic resource for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Push for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, okay. Somebody, Kay Howard at 4:56 p.m. asked this very important question. Does self-determination program and employability impact their Social Security? This is the #1 fear that I have heard from everybody around employment is, if I become employed, am I going to lose my benefits, my public benefits? Because of that, The part 2 of this 3-part series is all about public benefits. So make sure you come to part 2, which is at our next SDP Connect. And we have an expert on benefits coming to talk about employment and the impact on your benefits and how you get help. So, because everybody's case around benefits is so individualized, it's important that you know where to go to get help to make sure that you can protect your benefits. So definitely come to that one. And then our third one, if you're curious what our third part is, the other thing that we got so many questions about was interest in microenterprises. So many of our loved ones and so many of the participants are interested in microenterprises. So the third part of this project is going to talk all about the person-centered plan, what needs to be discussed, how we're going to be looking at all the things in order to get microenterprise. And we're going to talk to some support services for microenterprises and some more people who are doing them. So those are the next pieces. Larkin, would you like to unmute?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so I'm helping my younger brother through SDP. I'm happy to report that we just got our spending plan approved. Yeah, very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So he's still trying to figure out, you know, from vocational perspective, what he wants to do. He's a musician, he's very gifted. So in the initial spending plan, we don't really have, we weren't able to get things like his music lessons approved quite yet, but we got enough other supports that were okay with what was approved. And I was just wondering if anybody who's been through this process has been able to or is willing to share the next step of like getting these kind of non-traditional services like paid for through FMS, if there's, or the FMS service, because I'm a little nervous that for some of the things that we have in a spending plan, if there's like a delay in payment, are people going to be put off by that? Or I guess just not knowing kind of the next step is making us a little nervous, and we want to make sure that we've got good resources now that we've got them approved, and anything that anybody's willing to share would be super helpful.
Absolutely. The first thing I'm going to share with you is a recent directive that came out that talked about how financial management services need to be paying for things. And so I will put the, after we talk, I will put the link in the chat for you to see. It will depend on your financial management service of how they pay for things. So, you know, I say 21 different regional centers, 21 different ways. Well, we've got 16 financial management services with 16 different ways. So it will depend on your financial management service, how different things are paid. You kind of have to work with them on the best method of how to get those things paid for. But what it does say in that directive is that the financial management service should be paying in the method. So for if it's something like in a normal community, a local business. So let's say it's a music class, that the financial management service needs to pay within the methodology that class bills everybody else. So let's say they say, well, you need to pay upfront for a month's services, then the financial management service needs to work that out to pay in that manner. Now, what the directive stopped short of saying was mandating that the financial management services use credit cards. They did not require that in this directive. But I'll tell you, it's something that is definitely in discussions, and Disability Voices United is advocating very hard to make sure that the things in your spending plan are accessible, that you are able to pay for them, because what's the point of having a spending plan you can't access? So it is on all of our minds. If you ever have problems, definitely reach out. So don't be afraid. There's a lot, like there are, 157 people in this room who are willing to help and help you along. So you're not alone in this. We had a question. Oh, this is a great question. Maria Gill at 502 asked, what if someone's at the stage where they don't know what they'd like to do? can self-determination program help? And I actually think that Tina, this might be a great question for you to answer. Do you feel comfortable answering that one?
Say the question one more time so I know I have it right.
She wants to know, what if someone's at the stage where they really don't know what they want to do, what they would like to do? Can
You have
self-determination
to,
program help?
yes, it can definitely help because the nice thing about self-determination is we can explore the world. We don't have to live confined anymore in the boxes. We can look and see what we want. Like, first thing you have to do is you have to let them know that they're allowed to dream. They're allowed to think about those things because, like, I didn't even know I could think about those things. It never crossed my mind because it was just always assumed that I was too sick to work. And sometimes you have to go and like experience things before you'll know what you want to do, to see what other people do. You have to go on the internet and explore and see what kind of jobs exist in the world. And then throw out all the rules because you don't have to just do what someone else is doing. You can think, what do I want to do? And come up with your own way. Like you can make things, or you can find out, think about what you're good at. Have them think about what their strengths are. And then once they know what their strengths are, you can help them think about what different kind of job opportunities might cater to those strengths, like or have them just forget that altogether and make things to sell. Like one of my strengths is I know how to crochet, so I'm gonna make an Etsy so I can make blankets that I like to make for people anyway and sell them.
I think that's such great advice. And that person-centered plan is kind of really where you start, and just looking at their interests. Just start with where their interests are and kind of go from there. And I love Tina saying, look at their strengths. Let's look at their strengths. The other thing is you can look at something like a customized employment or that kind of an option where they'll do discovery, and you can try a few different, and this is, I think, the beauty of self-determination program is you can try a few different things. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do,
We
and
have the right to make mistakes. We have the right to try things and fail. And
exactly.
that's okay. It's all right. It's part of who you are.
Yeah. Or try it and succeed and say, this isn't what I want to do. I'm going to try something different.
Exactly. That's totally it.
And I think Freddie was such a great example of somebody who's like, oh, he thought he was going down this path and went, wow, this is a great path. I love this. And so I think this is, so I think self-determination is a great way for you to find those things if you don't know what you want to do.
It's kind of like what I was doing. I was focusing on my crochet. That's what I wanted to do. And then I found out about the Speakers Bureau and I was like, that kind of sounds like fun. Maybe I'll just take that. It doesn't cost anything. I'll take it and I'll see, if that's something I like. And I loved it.
And you're so good at it. Like you
yeah.
were a natural born speaker.
And it's like you don't know what you're good at sometimes until you try it. So have them look with new eyes and be open to trying new things, because until you try new things, you don't know if you like them or not.
Freddie, I saw you popped on your camera. Did you want to add to that?
No, I mean, there's not much he explained it in very detailed. Like, it's just I recommend starting self-determination to discover what's really your passion and discover it from there. Yeah.
And I think the key with you is you were open to try something different.
Yes, I was. And be very open-minded too, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another great piece. Valdemitra, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, and you have never met my daughter, but she's here with me. This is my daughter, Ariana.
Hi, Ariana. It's so nice to meet you. Hi.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I heard Tina, and I love what Tina was saying. I love the way she's acting and feeling, but we're not there yet, and we don't know how to get there. to the point of her at least trying something. She's been in my world, that I've protected her, this world, and she's comfortable in it. I do know she loves writing. Whenever she's home, we have journals, we have crates and crates and crates of journals that she just does this writing. So I'm thinking she likes writing. Um, she's tried different things, but nothing seems to, really, she likes photography. So who do we talk to that can help me bring it out in a in a in a personal center plan, I guess?
So an independent facilitator is really important for that person-centered plan to help develop that. But then they can also kind of go beyond that person-centered plan to who are going to be those supports, right? And so in that plan, hopefully you have your circle of supports and people can make thoughts and suggestions. I would think that there's so many opportunities around writing. And one of the things so I have a friend who is an author and she talks so much about self-publishing on Amazon. People can publish their own books. And it costs nothing to do it.
She
Um,
tried that. She did that once. Yeah, she did. She did that once. Yes.
You
so,
can
so
also take classes. You can also take classes at college about writing and explore about other writing styles and stuff.
Well, I think one of our problems is we don't have a good support team. All the ones that we
That's
have
key.
tried
You have to
tried to
have the right
get,
supports.
I was going to say, well, that's what we're trying to find because the ones that we have gotten, they're just not good for her. They're not bringing anything out. They're not, elevating her in any kind of way. It's just we don't have a good support team, so we're going to try to start all over with the new budget year.
I've had to start all the way over with a whole new staff.
Yeah, that's what
If you
we
reach a
definitely
point
are
where
going to do that.
you're stagnant or you have problems, it's okay to start over. You can say, hey, I'll call my IF and I'll go, this just isn't working. Help me fix it. And that's his job, and he does it.
Okay,
And
okay.
also, one of the things that I would say is you have to remember that we're all individuals. We all learn and grow at our own speed, and you have to find what works for the individual. Sometimes that's the hard part. It took me a long time to get to where I was ready for the next step. It's baby steps sometimes. Sometimes you take baby steps, and the next thing you know, you're running.
Tina, how long have you been in self-determination?
I've been in self-determination for more than 20 years.
I didn't know they had it that long. Wow.
I
Okay.
was in the pilot project that helped decide whether or not to make it a state project, a state thing. And it was definitely baby steps because in the very beginning, I was just terrified all the time. Everything scared me because, I didn't have that same safety net. I'm the one that had to figure everything out. And, it was terrifying in the beginning, but you succeed enough, then you start to get confident and then it becomes easier.
How long
And
did it, I'm sorry.
ask.
I was going to say, how long did it take you to get to a point where you made a decision for yourself?
I think about 2 months in, the decision I made was that I wanted to be the one who decided what we had for dinner. That was huge. That was huge because before that, I was so used to everybody else doing everything for me because I came from boarding care. I was in boarding care. I wasn't even allowed to make decisions like that. So all of a sudden, one day after people told me enough times, this is about you and what you want, I said, well, then how come I can't have what I want for dinner? It's baby steps. That seems like a small thing, but that was big. That was big back then. And now now they're like trying to shove me back in the box because I won't stop talking. But back then I didn't hardly talk. I didn't understand what life was because I was so used to just surviving, but I'm not surviving anymore. I'm living. But it takes time and you have to be patient because thinking outside the box is a skill and it's a hard learned skill. It's not something you just understand immediately. self-determination is a lot of learning. And if you'd have known me 15 years ago, like, I'm so much different now. I'm like a whole new different person.
Right. I really thank you so much, Tina. Really talking and hearing you has really given me some hope. Yeah, it really has. Yeah, thank you so much. And one last question, Christine, I just want to ask. So when you're in this, when you do the personal center plan and everything, because Tina says she's been in this program for like 20 years. So every year something has to change, right?
So, and sometimes there are years where not much changed, and then sometimes there are years like, wow, something radically changes. So, some years are just a little update, and some are like, wow, I need to start a whole new one. This is
Okay.
things.
Yeah, some years we just make little alterations to the numbers in the plan, and other years we throw it out, start over.
Okay.
So
Alright.
we are actually 2 minutes over. I have to be very cognizant of our interpretation. Thank you so much. We have amazing interpreters. So we do have to end. I'm so sorry. I know we have all these hands up. We had so many questions we didn't get to. Thank you so much to Tina, to Freddy, to Sula. Thank you so much for coming. And we will see you at the next SDP Connect with what works for us. And we will be doing part 2, talking about employment and those benefits.